Trump thought he could destroy a black congresswoman on live TV. Then she opened her black folder. What happened in the next 31 seconds made him run from the studio, crashed private prison stocks 23%, and turned 52% of ICE agents against him. Veterans stood and applauded as the president fled. This freshman Democrat just ended Trump's career with receipts. The 4-year-old's audio will make you cry. The question about Ivanka that left him speechless. A special live edition on immigration and security. President Donald Trump faces questions about his controversial ICE policies. Joining him is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, freshman Democrat from Texas's 30th District, former civil rights attorney and public defender. What was supposed to be a policy discussion would become the most watched political interview in television history. Good evening, I'm Anderson Cooper. The red recording light glowed. 75 million Americans watching. 3 days ago, Carlos Martinez was arrested by ICE while dropping his granddaughter at school. Mr. Martinez served 3 tours in Vietnam, Purple Heart, Bronze Star. His son, Eduardo, died in Afghanistan in 2011. Cell phone footage filled the monitor, vertical, shaky, a child's scream, "That's my grandpa. He was in the army. Please." The ICE agent's bored response, "Could be fake ID. We'll sort it out later." Mr. Martinez spent 72 hours in detention before lawyers freed him. His 8-year-old granddaughter, Emma, whom he's raised since his son's death, spent those days not knowing if she'd ever see him again. Cooper turned to his guests. "Mr. President, can you explain how a decorated Vietnam veteran with full documentation ends up in ICE detention?" Trump's hands were already moving, sculpting air. "Anderson, first of all, we have the best border security ever. The best. Everyone says so. And sometimes, look, mistakes happen. Very rare. But we're keeping Americans safe from the invasion of criminals and drugs." His standard speech, his comfort zone. Then his head swiveled toward Crockett like a turret finding its target. "But you know who doesn't support keeping Americans safe? Democrats like Congresswoman Crockett here. Do you know what she did before Congress? She was a public defender. A public defender. While soldiers like Mr. Martinez were defending our country, she was defending criminals. The worst criminals." Crockett made a single note on her pad. 3 words. Her expression didn't change. Trump's voice climbed. "Her district is a disaster. Complete disaster. Crime everywhere. But what's she doing? Wasting time trying to make me look bad instead of fixing her own backyard. She's never served her country, never worn the uniform, but she thinks she knows better than me about protecting America." He settled back, satisfied, the gladiator who delivered the killing blow. "I've done more for veterans than any president in history. Ask any veteran. They love me. All of them. But people like her, dismissive wave. They'd rather spend money on illegal immigrants than heroes." Silence. The studio lights hummed. Someone's shoe scraped. In the control room, nobody breathed. Crockett set down her pen. Looked at Cooper, not Trump. When she spoke, her voice was so quiet, the boom operator scrambled to adjust. "My grandfather earned a Purple Heart at Normandy. He didn't talk about his service much, but he taught me that patriotism isn't measured by how loudly you praise yourself. It's measured by how faithfully you serve others." She opened the black portfolio. The clasp clicked like a gun being cocked. "Mr. President, you mentioned doing more for veterans than any president in history. Let's examine that claim with actual evidence." Trump's smirk began to wilt. His aide's phone buzzed frantically. For messages from the chief of staff, "Get him out of there now." But it was already too late. On March 15 of this year, Crockett continued, lifting a document, "You signed Executive Order 14226, which you claimed would revolutionize immigrant detention through private sector excellence." She placed the paper on the desk. The camera zoomed. Yellow highlighter marked Section 4, Paragraph C, reallocation of facility resources to maximize detention capacity through private contractors is authorized at the discretion of the Secretary. "So, what you didn't mention in your signing ceremony," she continued, producing another document, "was that within 30 days, ICE awarded $1.22 billion in new contracts to 3 companies, American Detention Solutions, Patriot Holding Corporation, and Freedom Facilities Management. Trump's knuckles whitened on the armrest. That's fake news. Those are legitimate companies doing important work. Let me finish, Mr. President, since you insisted on the same courtesy. Steel beneath the silk. She pulled out a Federal Election Commission report. These three companies' CEOs collectively contributed $47 million to your 2024 campaign, the largest donors in the private prison sector. Cooper leaned forward slightly, a tell that his producers would later note meant he smelled blood in the water. These companies, Crockett continued, had no prior experience in immigration detention. None. Zero. But within weeks, they were running facilities holding thousands of people. She looked at Cooper, including him in the revelation. Anderson, the president said mistakes are very rare. Let me share some data from my office's investigation. A chart materialized on the monitor. Trump's aide dropped his phone. Since April, we've documented 3,247 cases of legal residents or U.S. citizens detained by ICE in Texas alone. That's not rare. That's systematic. Trump's face had progressed from red to purple. Those numbers are fake, completely made up. These are from ICE's own internal reports, Mr. President, obtained through FOIA requests. Would you like to see the metadata? She lifted a thick folder, papers tagged with evidence labels. I have them all here. Every case, every name, every family destroyed by your policies. She didn't wait for an answer. Another document emerged. But let's talk about who ICE is actually arresting. You claim they're all dangerous criminals. Here's the breakdown from your own Department of Homeland Security. The pie chart on the monitor might as well have been a prosecution exhibit. 73% no criminal record. 18% traffic violations only. 5% misdemeanors. 4% felonies. 4%, Crockett repeated. Her voice never rose, which made it worse. Of all your ICE arrests, only 4% are the dangerous criminals you keep talking about. The rest are people like Carlos Martinez, or like the 127 children currently being held in a converted Walmart in Dallas. Children of criminals. Trump's spittle caught the light. Anchor babies for the first time. Crockett's composure cracked, a hairline fracture that showed something molten beneath. American citizens, Mr. President. Children who were born here, whose parents were taken in workplace raids, living in cages because their skin is brown and their names sound foreign to your agents. She touched her tablet screen with one finger. A small voice filled the studio, young, frightened, but trying to be brave. I want my mommy. I've been good. Please, I want my mommy. My name is Amy Rodriguez and I'm 4 years old and I want my mommy. The recording continued. In the control room, the assistant director pressed her knuckles to her mouth. On the studio floor, a camera operator's hand shook slightly. The boom operator's arms trembled. The pole dipped into frame. Nobody called cut. Amy's mother, Maria, was arrested at the hospital where she works as a registered nurse, Crockett said, her voice gentled the way you'd speak at a funeral. She was treating COVID patients when ICE arrived. She's been in this country for 20 years. She's in proceedings to adjust her status. Amy hasn't seen her in 6 weeks. Trump's attempt to reclaim control came out strangled. These are isolated cases, anecdotes. The overall numbers. Let's talk about overall numbers. Smooth as a car dealer. Another chart appeared. Your executive order didn't just change detention practices, it changed priorities. Here's where ICE is concentrating its efforts. The map showed major cities with arrest statistics. The pattern was unmistakable. Every city with a Democratic mayor, every city with large black and brown populations, showed massive arrest numbers. Meanwhile, she clicked to another slide. Arrests at actual border crossings are down 34%. Arrests of people with violent felonies are down 41%. Your agents are too busy arresting nurses and veterans in Dallas to catch actual criminals at the border. She paused, letting the numbers sink in. But this pattern isn't new, is it, Mr. President? In fact, it has historical precedent. Crockett reached into her portfolio and pulled out a leather-bound book. The spine read, American Legal History 1700 to 1900. Let me read you something from the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. She opened to a marked page. Section 5. All good citizens are hereby commanded to aid and assist in the prompt and efficient execution of this law. Marshals and deputies are authorized to call upon bystanders for assistance in capturing any person suspected of being a fugitive. She looked up. Suspected, not proven. Suspected based on what? The law continues, upon satisfactory proof being made by deposition or affidavit or by other satisfactory testimony. Trump shifted uncomfortably. What does this have to do with? I'm getting there, Mr. President. Crockett pulled out a modern document. This is from your ICE enforcement guidelines issued April 2024. Quote, agents are authorized to detain individuals suspected of unlawful presence based on reasonable indicators, including but not limited to physical appearance, language proficiency, or location of encounter. She held both documents up. 1850, suspected of being a fugitive based on appearance. 2024, suspected of unlawful presence based on appearance. The language has barely changed in 174 years. Cooper interjected. That's a provocative comparison, Congresswoman. It's not a comparison, Anderson. It's a continuation. She pulled out more documents. The slave patrols of the 1700s were paid per capture. Your private detention facilities, Mr. President, are paid per detainee. The slave patrols could enter any home without a warrant if they suspected a fugitive. ICE claims the same authority within 100 miles of any border. Trump's face had gone from purple to a mottled puce. You can't compare. This is completely different. Is it? Crockett's voice remained deadly calm. Both target people based on appearance. Both prioritize captures over justice. Both tear families apart. Both treat certain humans as less than human. The only difference is that now we use bureaucracy instead of whips. She turned to another section. But let's talk about economic impact. Since you're a businessman, Mr. President, let me tell you about Maple Avenue in Dallas. New slides appeared, a bustling street, awnings bright with color, families strolling past shop windows. 6 months ago, this street had 47 small businesses. The Gonzalez family's restaurant, where 3 generations worked side by side. Kim's Market, where Mrs. Kim knew every customer's name. The Ethiopian coffee shop where taxi drivers gathered at dawn. Click. The next slide hit like a punch, boarded windows, graffiti, a for-lease sign hanging crooked. Today, Crockett's voice caught, Mrs. Kim sits in her empty store, too stubborn to lock the door for the last time. The Gonzalez family, citizens for 3 generations, closed after ICE took their chef, their waiters, their customers' trust. She pulled out a handwritten letter. The paper trembled slightly in her hands. This is from Jim Thompson. Listen to his words, I'm a veteran. Voted for Trump twice. My hardware store survived the recession, survived Amazon, survived COVID, but it couldn't survive fear. When ICE raided the restaurant next door, my customers vanished. Not just immigrants, everyone. Nobody wants to shop where their neighbors get dragged away. You killed my American dream to catch dishwashers and bus boys. The silence stretched. Cooper seemed about to speak when Crockett continued. But Jim Thompson can rebuild. You know who can't. She touched her tablet. New images filled the screen. Mrs. Chen at the grocery watches families count pennies. A gallon of milk costs $5.89 now, up from $3.99. Why? Because the dairy farms can't find workers. The processing plants run at half capacity. The truck drivers who delivered at 3 a.m. because they feared daylight, they're gone. Her finger moved across the tablet. Construction sites sit empty, not because there's no demand, because there's no labor. That new elementary school in Oak Cliff. An image appeared, steel beams against gray sky, rust already forming. It was supposed to open this fall. Now our kids pack into trailers while contractors beg for workers at any price. She looked directly at Trump. And our hospitals. Mr. President, let me tell you about last Tuesday. Eduardo Jimenez, 47 years old, American citizen, father of 3, chest pains at 8 a.m., got to the ER at 8:23, waited 9 hours. 9 hours because we're short 4,000 healthcare workers in Dallas alone. ICE took them. Eduardo died at 5:47 p.m. heart attack, preventable. His youngest daughter is 6. Cooper, sensing the moment, asked, "Mr. President, how do you respond to these statistics?" Trump exploded like a geyser. "It's all fake, made-up numbers. She's working with the deep state to make me look bad." He whirled on Crockett, finger-stabbing. "You've never served this country. You've never put on a uniform. What do you know about keeping America safe?" Crockett's response was a scalpel wrapped in velvet. "You're right, Mr. President. I never served in the military. Neither did you." The gasp came from somewhere off camera, involuntary, immediately stifled. "The difference is, I don't claim bone spurs kept me from serving." Trump's aide had given up on his phone and now stood frozen, watching a presidency implode in real time. "But this isn't about you or me," Crockett continued. She touched her tablet again. "It's about them." A face filled the monitor, not just a photo, a person. Staff Sergeant Marcus Williams in his dress blues. But the camera had caught something else, his daughter's pink bicycle in the driveway behind him, a welcome home banner still hanging from 6 months ago. Marcus Williams, 2 tours in Iraq, Fallujah, Ramadi. Came home with a Bronze Star and nightmares that wake his wife at 3 a.m., Crockett's voice carried the weight of his service. Last month, his new neighbor called 911, said there was a suspicious black man loitering. Where? In his own driveway, fixing his daughter's bike, the one with the unicorn stickers. She paused. The officers who responded knew Marcus, apologized, but ICE had been notified. They don't apologize. They detained him for 72 hours. His daughter, she's 7. She won't ride that bike anymore. The image changed, a woman in surgical scrubs, exhaustion written in every line of her face, but her eyes still kind. Lieutenant Maria Santos, Afghanistan Field Hospital. 18 soldiers breathing today because her hands didn't shake during a mortar attack. Crockett's voice hardened. Last week, she was suturing a patient's wound when he heard her accent, refused her care, said he wanted a real American doctor. The administrator asked Maria, who has saved more American lives than most of us ever will, to prove her citizenship again. Another face, Chief Petty Officer David Kim in his naval whites, standing with his teenage daughter at what looked like a school science fair. Her project, My Hero, My Dad. David Kim gave 20 years to the Navy. His daughter Jenny, honor roll student, volunteers at the Veterans Center, was held by school security for 2 hours. Why? Another parent reported her as possibly illegal. She was born in San Diego. She's never been outside California. But her eyes, her name, they were enough to make her suspect. With each face, each story, Trump seemed to shrink in his elevated chair. The height advantage had become a pillory. These are the people your policies are hurting, Mr. President, not criminals, patriots. Trump shot to his feet, chair rolling backward. This is an ambush, a setup. These are all actors, paid protesters. Sit down, Mr. President. Cooper's wartime correspondent voice cut through. We're on live television. But Trump was beyond hearing. His face had taken on the mottled purple of a bruise. I don't have to sit here and listen to these lies. Everyone knows I love the veterans. I've done more for them than anyone. Then explain this. Crockett pulled out a document marked confidential in red. Internal memo from your VA secretary dated April 30th, subject, reallocation of veteran mental health funding to immigration enforcement. She read with the precision of a judge delivering a verdict, per executive guidance, $847 million designated for VA mental health services will be redirected to support expanded ICE operations. Programs affected include PTSD treatment, suicide prevention, and substance abuse counseling. You took money from veteran suicide prevention to fund immigration raids. It's not true. Trump's arms windmilled. She's making it up. The memo is signed by your VA secretary, Mr. President. Crockett held up the signature page. Would you like to call him? I have his number. She pulled out her phone and began dialing. Let's call Secretary Johnson right now, live on air. He can confirm or deny. No. Trump lunged forward as if to grab the phone. Secret Service agents tensed, hands moving to ready positions. The studio held its breath. But Crockett wasn't done. She stood slowly, maintaining her dignity even as Trump loomed over her. "Mr. President, let me ask you something, a hypothetical question." Her voice was gentle now, almost sympathetic. "Your daughter Ivanka is shopping in Miami. She's speaking to her daughter in the Czech she learned from her mother. Someone hears her accent, sees her foreign features, and calls ICE. Says she doesn't look American." Trump's face contorted. "That's ridiculous. Everyone knows. But what if they didn't know? What if she forgot her ID? What if the agent didn't believe her?" Crockett stepped closer. "Under your executive order, she could be detained. Your granddaughter could watch her mother dragged away. She could spend days in a cage wondering if she'll see her again. My daughter is American. So is Amy Rodriguez. So was Carlos Martinez. But you don't care about them because they're brown and their names sound foreign to you." The silence that followed was absolute. Trump stood frozen, mouth working soundlessly. His aide later said it was exactly 31 seconds. He counted, 31 seconds of dead air on live television while the President of the United States tried and failed to form words. Finally, Trump found his voice, but it came out high and strangled. This is fake news. I'm not going to participate in this witch hunt." He spun toward the exit, then spun back, finger pointed like a pistol at Crockett. "You're going to pay for this. You're a nasty woman. A nasty, nasty woman. Nobody attacks me like this. Nobody." "I'm not attacking you, Mr. President." Crockett's calm was a mirror that showed his rage in sharp relief. "I'm presenting evidence. If the truth feels like an attack, perhaps you should examine why." The dam burst. Trump's face contorted into something primal. "You know what? I know why you're really doing this. You people always stick together. You probably weren't even born here. Where's your birth certificate? Have you shown anyone your birth certificate?" The studio temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Even the camera operators froze. Cooper's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. So she says," Trump's voice had taken on the high, reedy quality of full paranoia. "Has anyone checked? Has anyone really checked? She could be one of them for all we know, coming here, taking our jobs, defending criminals, attacking real Americans like me." Crockett reached into her portfolio one more time. "Mr. President, would you like to see my birth certificate? I have it right here, along with my bar certification, my voting record, and a letter from your predecessor thanking me for my service to criminal justice reform." She walked toward him, documents extended, each step measured, deliberate. "Would you like to examine them? Compare them to Mr. Martinez's documents that your agents dismissed as possibly fake." Trump stumbled backward, his heel caught. For a moment, he windmilled. Secret Service reaching to steady him. I'm not, this is a setup." "Sit down, Mr. President." Cooper tried again. "We still have 20 minutes. But Trump was already moving, half running toward the exit, his security detail scrambling to follow. At the door, he turned for one final screech, "And you. You're going to regret this. Nobody makes me look bad. Nobody." The door slammed. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the studio for 3 full seconds. No one moved. No one breathed. Cooper touched his earpiece, listening to the chaos in the control room. Then the consummate professional, "Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States has left our interview. We still have 18 minutes remaining. Congresswoman Crockett, would you like to continue?" Crockett walked back to her chair with the same measured pace. She smoothed her skirt as she sat. "Anderson, there are 75 million Americans watching who deserve to know the truth. I'm happy to continue." For the next 18 minutes, without interruption or rebuttal, Crockett laid out the case like a prosecutor in closing arguments. She showed contracts. She played audio recordings. She presented testimony from ICE whistleblowers who described quotas and bounties for arrests. The most damning evidence came near the end. 3 days ago, she said, a brave ICE agent came forward with this recording from a March staff meeting. The audio quality was pristine. Trump's voice filled the studio. I need those detention numbers up. The election is coming. People need to see we're tough. Another voice, nervous, sir, if we increase raids, we'll mostly be getting workers and families, not criminals. I don't care what you get. I need numbers. Big numbers. The biggest numbers ever. And focus on the Democrat cities. Make them hurt. Cooper's face could have been carved from stone. That appears to be the president directing ICE to target American cities for political purposes. It's worse than that, Crockett said. He's ordering the arrest of innocent people to boost statistics. Every arrest is a family destroyed. Every detention is a child traumatized. And he's doing it for poll numbers. She turned to the camera, looking directly at America. To every veteran who has been detained, every family that's been separated, every American citizen who's been treated like a criminal because of how you look or sound, I want you to know that we see you, we hear you, and we're going to fight for you. The interview concluded with Crockett reading resources for those affected by ICE raids. As the cameras shut off and the studio lights dimmed, the control room erupted. Producers who had worked in television for decades stood in stunned silence. The President of the United States had fled a live interview after being confronted with his own words, his own policies, his own cruelty. Voiceover, in one paragraph: the digital age moves at light speed. Within seconds of Trump's exit, hashtag 31 seconds began trending, referencing his frozen silence when asked about Ivanka. The racist attack on Crockett's citizenship had been clipped and shared thousands of times before the interview even ended. By 9:47 p.m., just 17 minutes after the interview ended, veterans organizations broke their careful political neutrality. The American Legion's statement was measured but damning. The allegations presented tonight regarding the diversion of VA mental health funding demand immediate investigation. Our veterans deserve answers. The VFW followed at 10:15 p.m. No veteran who has served this nation honorably should fear detention by their own government. We call for immediate suspension of ICE activities pending review. On social media, the response was volcanic. A photo went viral in minutes. Marine veteran James Crawford had walked to his garage, found his old dress blues, and stood in his driveway holding a sign, "I served 3 tours in Iraq for all Americans, not just the white ones." His wife posted it at 9:52 p.m. By 10:15, it had 2 million shares. At Mar-a-Lago, where Trump had fled directly from CBS, the scene was chaos. Through the windows, staff could be seen running between rooms. The head of security later testified he heard the sound of a television being thrown at approximately 10:27 p.m. 3 aides submitted resignations by text within the hour. The parking lot told its own story. The chief of staff's car sat running, driver's door open, while he paced in circles, tie pulled loose, shouting into his phone, "I don't care what the lawyers say. We need a response now." His voice cracked on the last word. Trump's Twitter account stayed silent for 3 hours, so unusual that CNN ran a breaking news banner, "No presidential tweets for 180 minutes following interview." When he finally posted at 2:37 a.m., the desperation was palpable. Congresswoman Crockett, who nobody ever heard of before today, ambushed me with fake veterans and forged documents. Totally disrespectful to our great military. I've done more for veterans than anyone in history. Ask any veteran. The misspelling of Crockett's name became its own meme within minutes. But more damaging was what happened next. Ask Any Veteran exploded. By dawn, over 100,000 veterans had posted their stories. A Navy SEAL in Virginia, "Lost my VA therapist. Told to wait 6 months or pay out of pocket. Thanks, Trump." An Army nurse in Georgia, "ICE detained my translator from Afghanistan. The man who saved my unit. He's an American citizen now." Was. By dawn, the political landscape had shifted like tectonic plates. Senator John Cornyn of Texas, facing re-election in a state with 1.7 million veterans, released a statement at 5:47 a.m. The allegations regarding VA funding demand immediate answers. Our veterans deserve better. 2 more Republican senators followed within the hour, then a governor, then another. Markets opened at 9:30 a.m. In the first minute of trading, CoreCivic stock fell 19%. GEO Group dropped 23%. By 10 a.m., both had triggered automatic trading halts. CNBC's Jim Cramer, visibly shaken, told viewers, "I've never seen anything like this. Private prison stocks in free fall. Investors are running for the exits." More significantly, ICE agents began a silent revolt. In Dallas, the morning shift was scheduled to start at 7 a.m. By 8:30, Supervisor Rachel Martinez was staring at an empty briefing room. 47% of agents had called in sick. In Houston, it was worse, 52%. One agent, speaking anonymously to the Houston Chronicle, his voice shaking, "I signed up after September 11th. Thought I'd be catching terrorists. Instead, I'm arresting grandmothers at church, nurses at hospitals. Yesterday, they wanted me to raid an elementary school. I can't. I just can't anymore." At 10 a.m., an unprecedented event, the governor of Texas held an emergency press conference. Behind him stood two other governors, one Democrat, one Republican. Effective immediately, the Texas governor announced, his hands gripping the podium, "Texas will suspend all cooperation with ICE until we receive guarantees that legal residents and citizens will not be detained. We will not allow American citizens to be dragged from their homes because of how they look or what language they speak." The Pentagon convened an emergency meeting at 11 a.m. An internal flash poll conducted overnight had delivered devastating results. 67% of active duty personnel now had serious concerns about post-service benefits. Recruitment offices reported cancellations throughout the morning. A soldier in Afghanistan told Stars and Stripes, "We're over here fighting for freedom while they're locking up veterans back home. My sergeant, Purple Heart, 20 years, his dad got detained last month, born in El Paso, spoke Spanish to his wife. That was enough. If that's what we're fighting for, what's the point?" The White House press briefing scheduled for noon started 23 minutes late. When Press Secretary Sarah Matthews finally appeared, her usual composure was cracked. Her hand shook as she arranged her papers. "The president remains committed to border security and veteran care," she read, not looking up. "Any suggestion otherwise is false. The interview last night was an ambush using fabricated evidence." "Which evidence specifically was fabricated?" shouted a reporter. Matthews shuffled her papers once, twice, a third time. "I'll have to get back to you on that." "Will the president apologize for questioning Congresswoman Crockett's citizenship?" Matthews was already walking away, her heels clicking faster with each step. "Thank you. That's all for today." The briefing had lasted 11 minutes, the shortest in White House history. In Dallas, Crockett stood before a packed community center. The fire marshal had long since stopped counting. People filled the aisles, lined the walls, spilled out into the parking lot where speakers had been hastily erected. When she raised her hands for quiet, the crowd settled like a congregation. "I'm not here to gloat or claim victory," she said. "I'm here to work. Every family separated, every veteran detained, every citizen harassed, we're going to document it all. We're going to demand accountability, and we're going to fix this." She called Carlos Martinez to the stage. He moved slowly, his granddaughter Emma steadying him. He wore his dress uniform, medals catching the lights. When he reached the microphone, his hands trembled. Emma squeezed his arm. "I served this country with pride." His voice broke on the last word. He stopped, swallowed, tried again. "I watched my friends die in Vietnam, held them as they called for their mothers. I sent my son to die in Afghanistan, folded that flag they gave me, and they treated me like a criminal, like my service meant nothing, like Eduardo's death meant nothing." The crowd was silent. Someone in the back was crying openly. "But this Congresswoman," Martinez continued, stronger now, "she stood up for us. She showed them receipts. She made them see us as human beings again. That's all we wanted, to be seen as human beings." The applause started in the back, spreading forward like a wave. Emma tugged on Crockett's jacket. The Congresswoman knelt to the child's level. The microphone picked up every word. "Thank you for helping my grandpa," Emma said, her voice clear and strong. "He's a hero. Now everyone knows it." The photo, Crockett embracing the child whose grandfather had been wrongfully detained, was on every front page the next morning. The New York Times, The Human Cost, The Washington Post, Truth to Power, even The Wall Street Journal, the interview that changed everything. Within 48 hours, the House announced a bipartisan investigation. The speed was unprecedented. Usually, such things took weeks of negotiation, but the phones hadn't stopped ringing. Every member of Congress was hearing from constituents, veterans, business owners, families. Committee Chair Elijah Cummings spoke at the announcement. "This is not about partisan politics. This is about the fundamental question of who we are as a nation. Do we honor those who served us? Do we protect the innocent? Do we tell the truth? Then the dam truly broke. On day 3, Agent Patricia Williams of ICE stood before a bank of microphones in Phoenix. Her dress uniform was immaculate. Behind her stood 12 other agents, men and women, various ages and ethnicities, all with the same grim determination on their faces. I joined ICE to protect America from real threats, Williams said. She held a thick folder against her chest. For 10 years, I did that job with pride, caught drug smugglers, stopped human traffickers, saved lives. She opened the folder, her hands were steady. But in the last year, everything changed. I've been ordered to arrest more mothers than murderers, more workers than drug dealers. I've been told to meet quotas, yes, quotas for arrests. Focus on high-visibility targets in minority communities. Make headlines, not safety. She pulled out a document. This is an email from my supervisor. Quote, remember, we need 50 arrests by Friday. I don't care if they're all jaywalkers. We need numbers. Another document. This is a memo about avoiding white areas to prevent backlash. We were literally ordered to target brown and black communities. One by one, the agents behind her stepped forward. Each had evidence, recordings of meetings where supervisors demanded higher numbers, emails targeting specific neighborhoods based on demographics, memos about avoiding churches and schools unless absolutely necessary for optics. The hashtag #ICEAgentsSpeakOut, exploded. Within hours, agents nationwide were posting evidence. A 20-year veteran in California posted a recording of his supervisor. I don't care if she's got a green card. She looks illegal. That's enough. Trump's response came in a 3 a.m. tweet storm that lasted 47 minutes. Disloyal agents, deep state, fake Republicans, nasty Crockett probably paying them, witch hunt, I am the best president for veterans ever. Anyone who says otherwise is fake news. The nutjob congresswoman was probably born in Kenya. Will investigate criminal. His lawyers would later call it Exhibit A through G and why we told him to shut up. By week's end, his approval rating had cratered to 31%, among military families, 22%. Fox News ran a segment titled, Is This the End? Tucker Carlson, for the first time in his career, seemed at a loss for words. The president, the interview, 75 million people saw, we need to, commercial break. But the real impact was on the ground. In Dallas, Army Ranger Marcus Johnson stood outside Rosa Parks Elementary School at 7 a.m. He wore his old uniform. Behind him, 6 other veterans. They'd heard ICE might raid the school. They came to stand watch. We protected democracy abroad, Johnson told a reporter. Now we need to protect it at home. These are American children. Their parents might be undocumented, but these kids are citizens. They're not touching these kids on our watch. By the next week, similar groups had formed in Houston, San Antonio, El Paso, veterans protecting schools, churches declaring themselves sanctuaries, local police departments announcing they would no longer cooperate with ICE without judicial warrants. Business owners, many of them Republican donors, demanded meetings with senators. Bob Morrison, who owned 6 restaurants in Texas, put it bluntly, I voted for Trump, donated to Trump. But he's destroyed my business. Half my workforce is gone. The other half is too scared to show up. This isn't law and order. This is economic suicide. 1 month later, Congress passed the Veterans and Citizens Protection Act with a veto-proof majority. The bill was comprehensive. Judicial review required for all ICE detentions lasting more than 24 hours, prohibited diversion of VA funds to immigration enforcement, established an independent oversight board for detention facilities, created a fast-track system for citizens to challenge detention, required body cameras for all ICE operations, mandated cultural competency training. Trump vetoed it anyway, calling it weak on crime and a gift to MS-13. Congress overrode the veto, 318 to 48 in the House, 89 to 11 in the Senate. It was the most bipartisan override in modern history. At the signing ceremony, Crockett stood with veterans and affected families. Carlos Martinez was there, Emma by his side. Maria Rodriguez held Amy's hand, reunited after the bill's fast-track provision freed her within 72 hours. This isn't the end, Crockett said. It's the beginning. We've shown that when we stand together, when we demand truth and accountability, we can make change. Democracy isn't a spectator sport. It requires all of us. 6 months later, the transformation was tangible. Marcus Johnson, the ranger who'd started protecting schools, now ran a nonprofit connecting veterans with immigrant families. we've got 3,000 volunteers in Texas alone, veterans who understand what it means to serve. We're teaching citizenship classes, providing legal help, standing witness. This is what patriotism looks like. Maple Avenue had stirred back to life. Jim Thompson's hardware store reopened with a new sign, "All Americans welcome / todos los estadounidenses bienvenidos." The day he reopened, Mrs. Kim from next door brought him Korean tea, the Gonzalez family sent their teenage son to help stock shelves, the Ethiopian coffee shop owner fixed his front door. "I learned something," Thompson told anyone who'd listen. "My community isn't just people who look like me. It's everyone who works hard and treats others with respect. Trump tried to divide us. Instead, he taught us we need each other." The private prison industry never recovered. CoreCivic declared bankruptcy after losing federal contracts. GEO Group desperately pivoted to halfway houses and rehab centers. The CEO who'd recorded Trump was serving 18 months for tax fraud. Investigators had followed the money trail Crockett exposed. Trump himself faced 7 separate investigations. His approval never recovered. When asked about the interview at a rare press appearance, he still insisted, "Fake news. All actors. Crockett probably isn't even American." But his voice was hollow. Even his supporters seemed tired of the act. Crockett had returned to Congress the Monday after the interview to find her office flooded with flowers from veterans organizations. She donated them all to VA hospitals with a simple note, "For the real heroes." She never wrote a book, never did the paid speaking circuit. When Time magazine named her Person of the Year, she gave the interview from her district office, surrounded by the family she'd helped reunite. "That night wasn't about me," she said. "It was about Carlos Martinez finally being seen, about Amy Rodriguez getting her mother back, about Agent Williams finding her conscience, about all of us remembering what America is supposed to be." The interviewer pressed, "But you destroyed a presidency. You changed history." Crockett shook her head. "I presented facts. The truth destroyed what needed destroying. That's how democracy works, slowly, painfully, but eventually." On the wall behind her hung 3 items, her grandfather's Purple Heart, a photo of Emma and Carlos Martinez at Emma's high school graduation, and a handwritten note from Amy Rodriguez, now 5, in crayon, "Thank you for bringing Mommy home." 1 year later, the full impact crystallized at the dedication of the Martinez Veterans Center in El Paso, built on the site of the old ICE detention facility. It served all veterans regardless of status. The symbolism wasn't subtle. Where families had been torn apart, they would now be helped to heal. Carlos Martinez cut the ribbon, Emma beside him, now 10, standing straight like the soldier she'd decided to become. In the crowd, Maria Rodriguez held Amy's hand. Agent Patricia Williams, now heading the Reformed Agency's Accountability Division, watched from the front row. Marcus Johnson and his volunteers formed an honor guard. Crockett had tried to stay in the background, but Martinez wouldn't allow it. "Would you say a few words?" he asked, pulling her forward. She looked out at the crowd, veterans, immigrants, citizens, all standing together under the Texas sun. The wind carried the scent of barbecue from the celebration planned for after. Children played between the folding chairs. American flags snapped in the breeze alongside the flags of a dozen other nations. The poet Maya Angelou wrote, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." Her voice carried clearly. That night on 60 Minutes, we told America's untold story, the story of what we were becoming. But today, we're writing a new story, the story of what we choose to be. She paused, emotion finally breaking through. "Mr. Martinez asked me once why I fought so hard when I could have stayed quiet. The answer is simple, because my grandfather didn't earn his Purple Heart so that another grandfather would lose his freedom for the color of his skin, because Amy Rodriguez's tears demanded justice, because silence in the face of wrong is complicity. But mostly," she continued, looking at the faces before her, brown and white and black, young and old, citizen and immigrant, because I believe in you, all of you. I believe that when Americans see the truth, really see it, we choose justice over fear. We choose compassion over cruelty. We choose each other over division. That's the America worth fighting for. That's the America we're building here today. Thank you." The applause lasted 10 minutes, but the work, rebuilding trust, reuniting families, remaking America into its better self, would last generations. Later, as the sun set and the celebration wound down, little Amy Rodriguez sat at a picnic table, carefully writing in her school notebook. A reporter asked what she was doing. "Homework," she said seriously. "I have to write about what America means." "What are you going to write?" Amy thought carefully, then smiled. America means everyone belongs. She printed the words in careful letters, tongue poking out in concentration. Her mother watched from nearby, tears in her eyes. The war for that truth continued. But on this day, in this place, with these people, hope was winning. And somewhere in the distance, as if in agreement, a mockingbird began to sing.